Let's talk now about a really great feature that Microsoft has put a lot of time and energy into that's been kind of up and coming for a while now. Now, in order to understand why this technology is such a great thing, you got to kind of go back in the past a little bit. And if you think about, the history of users working from home, telecommuting, all of that stuff. In the past, if you go back into like the 90s, you would have a computer with like a laptop with a modem, and you might dial up to something called a RAS server, remote access server, or as time went on, they started calling it RAS, routing and remote access services, and you would connect in through that. And then eventually, as time went on, as we got into the early 2000s, we moved into using VPNs, right? Virtual private networks. And that was how we would supply a secure connection. Now, the problem we have today, we can still use VPNs to allow users to get access to networks. But the problem we have now is, imagine, we pretty much have everything hosted in the cloud. A lot of companies do, and that's sort of the direction everybody's going. We have, the different applications through Microsoft 365. We have IaaS, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service-based technologies in Microsoft Azure. We've got software as a service. So we've got all these various workloads that people need to get access to, applications, data, whatever assets we've got. And in this crazy day and age, businesses want their users to basically be able to just work from anywhere, from virtually any type of device, and access these resources just on the go at any time. And the issue you run into is getting users to have some kind of a secure connection. You don't want to have to set up a VPN gateway for your users to connect in through Azure. You can do that, but ultimately we want things to be as seamless as possible. Now, what does that mean? That means that a user can turn on their computer, they can access their personal stuff, and then they can access the business stuff, and little do they know, we've got something that's securing everything whenever they are accessing resources that are out there in our environment. Okay, even if we don't necessarily own the computer. In a perfect world, you do want to own the computer. The business does want to own the laptop or whatever it is, because we can lock things down even tighter. But even if we don't, we can make it where when they are accessing company resources, there's extra lockdown encryption in place that's working in regards to sort of like a VPN, and then using firewall services and all that fun stuff, and giving them access to everything. So there's essentially two technologies that are working together to do this. The first is called Microsoft Entra Internet Access, and the second is called Microsoft Entra Private Access. Okay, and these two technologies work together by using a client software that gets installed on your client devices. This is called the Global Secure Access Client. So that gets installed, and when they authenticate, they'll have to authenticate to this client. It links them to both of these. So they get secure access to Microsoft 365 apps, as well as all the Azure services. Okay, and it's very quick, it's very seamless, and it's done through the Microsoft Entra portal. Okay, now the key points to understand here when you think about this: number one, this is providing a unified solution. Okay, so it's combining the Microsoft Entra Access and the Microsoft Entra Private Access, or Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Microsoft Entra Private Access, and this is giving us something called SSE. That is the Secure Service Edge solution. That is essentially the Secure Service Edge solution is when you're connecting into the edge of these resources here, essentially. Okay, that's what that's all about. It's an identity-centric. Okay, and that kind of goes hand in hand with this last bullet point that I'll explain more about in a minute, which is zero trust. So it plays upon the zero trust model, identity-centric. That gets into supporting conditional access policies, compliance policies. It can require the device meet certain standards, or they just don't get access. Okay. Then you've got remote network connectivity. Obviously, one of the major things that this thing is doing is allowing the end user to get access to the resources that they need and make sure that it's very secure. You've got web content filtering. So I can actually manipulate which types of content they can open. Now, if this is a company-owned device, we can lock this thing down tight. We can control every website they can go to. We can control the things that they can do. You can make it where literally, with the help of Defender for Cloud apps with this, you can make it where maybe you allow your company users to use a company Dropbox account for each user, but what if somebody has a personal Dropbox account? It can actually outlaw that. Same thing for OneDrive and other. Dropbox was the first thing that came to my head, but you could do this with OneDrive as well. They have to use their business OneDrive. They can't use a personal OneDrive account for sharing data. You can do all of that with the help of Defender for Cloud apps in this. You have simplified traffic management, so you can control the flow of traffic and what types of network traffic is allowed to communicate in conjunction with all of this. Again, you've got compliance policies here, security policies for all this. You have scalability and flexibility. So this is going to help with the issues of scaling traditional network security solutions, and basically give you lots of options as far as the types of devices and the different locations these devices are in, without having to put a bunch of infrastructure in place like VPN concentrators and things like that. And then lastly, you have the zero trust that I mentioned. So zero trust access to private resources. Everything is authenticated, authorized with the help of the Microsoft Entra identity, getting into Microsoft Entra ID services, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. And you're not having to do any traditional VPN capabilities or any of that. It follows conditional access, compliance policies. That's all part of zero trust, meaning everybody has to authenticate and everything gets checked. And if you implement a conditional access policy, it occurs in real time. So the user, it's not like they have to reboot their computer before they get restricted from something. It all happens in real time. All right. So hopefully you can see why utilizing this new technology, Microsoft Entra Global Secure Access, which is these two technologies together, which utilizes this security service edge, why this is such a good thing and why it's so powerful. And this is definitely something that's upcoming. You're going to start seeing companies start to implement more and more as time goes on.